right. The number one question out there dealing with personality issues, personality disorders. One of the biggest things that a lot of others don't talk about. There's so many names out there for it. Some people call it your split. Some people call it a disorder. Some people call it issues. Some people call it, mental illness, whatever it is. And then you have borderline personality disorders. But understanding them in a better way, it's to logically think about it first, like before you start educating yourself on it. But it ends up being a behavioral disorder anyways, is what it comes down to. Like, nothing more, nothing less. But when it comes to the personality part of it, it's like, it's going to be the people that you hang around, whether it's friends, family, whatever it is. Majority is going to be friends. And so as we get older, it becomes more effective because it interferes with our daily life. And as we get older, we have more responsibilities and we have more situations to where we have to responsibly do things and upkeep, our lives. And we try to kind of balance the working, upkeeping life, and friendships and going out and stuff like that. And so, like, the 24 hours ain't enough in a day type of way, And we just keep going, and we don't really confront these issues or think about them until you kind of have that crash and burn, and that time to have the awareness in life. So when others go through this time to have awareness, it's interesting because it's like knowing that you need to do something about it, but not knowing exactly how to take the steps and understand them. And it can become a stressful life. So when understanding these issues, always know, like, if you haven't been in a major accident and you haven't been, like, majorly injured, then it's not a true definition of a split. Like, when it comes to the topic of a split, like, that is something almost nobody would understand, because it's actually an injury where our body works differently. It's more of a motor skill. Like, it's more of the way we move, our movement. And that would be the true meaning of a split. Okay, so just wanted to get that out of the way, that it would be the body functioning. That's kind of, doing things a little different than the norm. And so when it comes to the split personality, you don't want to view it like that. Like, you don't want to literally think about it being two sides of the brain. No. Like, no, not at all. Split personality is literally a behavior issue. And we do have neurons. We have neurons that basically They call them a mirror neuron, but it's not like it can be very effective, but when you know about it, it's like you have that choice, right? Because you have that aha, like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's just like anybody learning in life, like, hey, if I put my hand in fire, I'm going to get burned, and I know not to again. Okay? And so when you understand this, it's like, oh, okay, that's what that neuron is. And then it allows you to have that awareness to where you just allowed yourself to have that choice. Okay? So when it comes to personality issues, which is what I would prefer to call them, you have to understand that the brain is a brain, right? And it has its functions, and it has its movement functions, its operation functions. What we do, it's just like any other muscle. This part does this part does it, whatever. Will we notice it and be aware of it? No. Like, we're not supposed to. It just naturally happens. Now, when it comes to the having an accident issue, that's where you'll notice like how things are working differently. But other than that, the personality issue itself, it's like the things that we know of, it will affect us in a behavioral way, meaning with friends. Interaction, knowing people, relationships, marriages, life in general. Life in general, we evolve. And the whole way through life, even history, how we evolved is what we've learned, like what we've been taught, basically. Any example is very clearly, like, we all know to go to a certain place to get our driver's license. That's what we've been taught. Until they make another way, then we'll probably utilize that other way. Just like when credit cards had the old school pink slips where they slide on and then you have to sign and all that. Then when they came out with online technology, then we change and we all use online technology now. So things like that, it's like we're always learning something new in life. And those things being explained, it's like when you take it into a friendship area of grouping with people or going out or whatever it is to you, we interact and we all have certain traits of us. Like whether we're shy or we get embarrassed easy, or an easy way to explain it is like, are you ticklish? Maybe your partner's not ticklish, right? And so we all have these traits, but we don't have them all because we experience them differently. And certain experiences allow us to be different because it's so effective to where if you've gotten embarrassed at one point in life, like, here's just an odd example, like getting a drink from a bar or a corner store and it's like it's spilled all over you, right? And so naturally the next time you do that, you're going to be very cautious and you're going to work really slow doing it. Like, you'll put the lid on and you'll be cautious and so forth. And so it's going to take about a year or two to where the normal person won't even notice because they're just living life. But their mind knows that they don't want to be embarrassed again like that. So they will take their time and they will cautiously fill up their cup and they'll put the lid on and they'll use both hands and they'll grasp that cup and hold it tight, right? And so it'll take a couple years for that to become natural to where they can overcome that embarrassment, right? And so it just naturally happens. And then the next thing you know, it's like, okay, like they're holding the cup with one hand. So every situation is different, you know. That was just an easy example of a fountain drink or a beverage. When you get into like group gatherings and going out, and it's like you kind of made a fool of yourself in front of a bunch of friends or whatever. Depending on how you made a fool of yourself, it's like it can be nothing. It's like, oh, it happens all the time. You could be used to it, probably because you're making people laugh or whatever. But for those moments that it's like, whoa, where they all feel bad, like, did she just fall or did he just fall bringing food to the table? Or, walking upstairs and the one or the other kind of slips and falls or whatever. It's like those issues cause behavioral problems. And so when this happens, it kind of holds you back. So when you meet new people that aren't aware of these embarrassments or these issues, it's like you're able to kind of have a second chance, right? Like, okay. And so you meet somebody new or you meet a new group of friends and you're going to notice that you're quiet. You're very quiet. And you'll be cautious and you'll watch. And you'll allow the other person to do what you were kind of embarrassed at one moment that happened to you. So, unless you really have to do it. So, you'll kind of kick back. You'll naturally be quiet. You'll be observant. You'll kind of not know how to react because you're almost like trying to fit in. And so, you call it, some people call it studying, but it really won't seem like you're studying at the moment because you're just being aware of how others respond, react, how they're doing things, basically. And so when it comes to more interactions with these new people, since you were a little bit quiet and you kind of did your study a little bit, your unawareness of studying, when it comes time to being comfortable and fitting in, it's like you'll not be aware of naturally doing things that the other person likes, right? And so when one person steps or acts, the quiet person will almost, in a sense, kind of follow it in their own unique way. Now, if they're following it in their unique way, that's actually, I would consider, properly learning, because you're doing it your unique way. Okay? So this will consistently happen with social behavior. And you'll notice how effective it is, and what it has taught you. And so there's so many other situations that I'm sure you can just kind of get from this example, and you'll understand, the minor mirror effect. It's like just a minor mirror effect. And so to know that it's not effective yet, but to know that how it happens. Okay. So to get more deeper into the subject, it's like when you're kind of hanging around new people or you have friends, y'all kind of do the same thing when it comes to eating, shopping, house arrangement, way of living, likes and dislikes, right? Because that's why they call them friends. Like, you got something in common. And so to be someone's friend, it's like, if you don't have nothing in common, then it's like, what's the point of having friends, right? Because then one person's going to want to do one thing, and then the other person's going to want to do another thing. So it's like completely regardless of even hanging out. So, depending on the person and how y'all met or whatever, it's like if one's trying to be the friend and the other really isn't so much trying and has a lot of friends, that one person that wants to be the friend is going to kind of like do a little more to try to fit in and be accepted of just being a friend, right? And so they're going to go a little bit more and beyond on the mirroring, because they're going to try new things and they're going to want the other person to like them, right? And so that's where you'll get your mirroring, and it's somebody that is developing new friendship in life or trying to fit in or whatnot. And then it's just like any other new friendship, you're able to say, hey, I like this, I don't like this, blah blah blah. You find what you have in common and so forth. And then when you naturally start hanging out a lot, it's like, you can like a certain drink for so many years, but then when you meet this new friend, your different drink change will come in effect, or a different food eating, or hanging out, or environment, or any of those things. And so, this is a natural way of changing to where your life is changing, and you'll still kind of notice the mirror effect, right? And so when you notice these mirror effects, it's like, to avoid from the personality issue is to be aware of it, know that you're giving yourself a choice. And know why you're trying something different, or know why you're doing something different. And so when all this starts to happen, and you're noticing these things, you'll understand where you're getting these behavioral issues from, and how they were affecting your life. So you'll start doing self-improvement when these things are being aware of. Okay, so those are very minor examples. When it comes to more friends and maintaining more friends, or friends that you've had for a long time, and you developed a life with them, friends, even your new friends, even when you're starting to develop a new life with them, you're always going to have your differences. Like, you're always going to have your arguments, you're always going to have your likes and dislikes, you're always going to have your flaws, you're always going to have those moments where a friend's mad at you, or whatever, right? Now, when this happens, it's like the behavioral will change to where jealousy occurs, right? Now, when the behavior changes in a negative way, this is where the mirroring could get worse, because you end up having issues to where you want to make the other person not so much jealous, but it's almost like bragging a little bit, but at the same time waiting or wanting to know a response. And so it's like, your friend don't hang out with you so long, and your other friend's going shopping with another person or whatever, and then you decide to go off with another friend or by yourself or whatever, and then you do your own shopping. Well, y'all are then at one point going to call each other, right? And so when you call each other, y'all meet up with each other. It's like, hey, I got this. Like, you want to conversate with them. Y'all will tell each other, what y'all did, what y'all didn't do. If both friends aren't upset at each other, it just becomes like, hey, you did this, you did that, and so forth. But when these shopping trips occur, or when y'all are away from each other and y'all are doing y'all's things, it's more than likely about 80% chance that y'all are going to buy certain things that each other would like. Meaning, the other friend's going to basically buy things based off of the other friend's opinion. Like what does so and so would think of this outfit on me? Or I wonder if this person would like this outfit, instead of recognizing like if you like it. And so when this happens, it's like, okay, at this point, like, you're buying things because you're used to another person's recognition about how you look. And of course that's friends, right? That's social way of living. Because when we go out, like, we want to look good, we want to get compliments and so forth. So when shopping trips occur, it's like you're basically looking for another person's opinion to give you that go ahead. Like, okay, I'll get this. And there's going to be a lot of times where you might not even like the outfit yourself, or you might not even like the product yourself. But since your friend liked it, or your friend gave you advice like, hey, this product works good or whatever, you're more likely to buy it. And so this is going to constantly happen regardless, no matter what. So when this happens, it's like you're not even going to notice this. It's just going to happen. Why? Because y'all are going to indulge more on the compliments, or the oh wow, or all those factors to where those compliments make you feel good or whatever. And so this is constant life. Like, it just keeps going. And it can get more effective beyond clothing, beyond drinks and food. It goes as far as home living, or cars you buy, or whatever it is. When you get older and you're about 40 years old, next thing you know, it's like, hey, I got cheaper insurance than Allstate or whatever. It's like both friends will literally share each other's opinions on, where to get cheaper insurance, where to get cheaper health insurance, or cheaper car payments, or whatever it is. And this is a constant, like, living. And it won't stop. Now, when you bring this into more of a personality issue, It can even go into your choice of men. Why? Because the complementum factor. Like, you bring a good guy to a party with friends, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, like, hey, your boyfriend looks good," or vice versa. Like, hey, your girlfriend looks very pretty, or whatever it is. And at this point, it's like, are you really being aware that you're getting compliments because you're with somebody pretty, instead of the pretty person, like, maybe a little nervous that she or he is at dinner for the first time with friends that they don't know, or trying to feel comfortable going to a gathering or whatever it is. And so, depending on the person, it's like, it becomes quite interesting, because let's just say, 4 girlfriends are kind of just living the life, and boyfriend every 6 months or whatever. The odds of those boyfriends being more in common with another one of those other girlfriends are very high odds, because of the compliment that they're getting from the other friend. So it's like, when a person goes into the dating scene, it's like, are they looking for the features that they actually like themselves, or are they gonna wonder what the friend is gonna compliment them about the new person they're dating? Right? And so, during this life situation that is just an example that may be similar to a lifestyle that somebody's interested in, personality issues, these behaviors are quite effective, because why we're learning all this. It's like learning anything in life. We go to school and we have to pass tests, right? To exceed to the next grade level, or to get a diploma, or we go to college and we pay for it to get a degree, right? And so we use that degree for something, work or whatever, and we have to learn it, we have to pass the test and so forth. This is a similar situation, except we're not studying with the pencil and paper. Like, we're studying naturally through observations, mannerisms, response of comments and compliments, and how we feel, so we don't get into that embarrassing mode, right? Because once you feel like that weird, warm, fuzzy feeling, that's embarrassment, and you're like, oh, you're kind of ducking your head a little bit, and like, ooh. It's like, those are the things people want to veer from. And so, to not allow those things that you want to veer from, it's like you're always going to be up to par with how to do things, which is going to be a reflection of how your friends do things, or other people in your life. And so this is a minor way of what you would call mirroring. Now, when it comes to the actual trueness of the personality disorder, this is where that advice giving type of way, or if you're at a friend's house and you see your friend and their spouse kind of get into a little quarrel or argument or whatever, and one person is watching this argument or quarrel, and they get their issue resolved in whatever way, whatever it is, then that person that saw that or observed that, there's a big chance that later on down the line in life, if that person that observed it has their own relationship and gets into a similar situation of a quarrel or argument, that they're going to use the same technique that they witnessed. And that is where the personality issue comes into play, right? And so we learn from each other, and what we're learning is very noticeable if a person wants to have that awareness and understand it. But how we learn it is almost invincible, like it's almost not knowing. And so this happens in everything. Like, you name it, it's happening. And the way it was just explained, from what we buy, from what we eat, how we drive, what gives us that oh my feeling, that makes us feel all noticed and have that smile to us or whatever. It could be the way we drive, from the way we buy things, to the way we laugh, to the way we do our hair, to our own mannerisms, to even the mistakes we make. Like, it's like when you drop a cup and it's like, oh, you know, whether you say, oh crap, or whatever, like, oh man, or whatever your response is. It's like, if it worked for the other person and you observed it and you witnessed it, then you're more than likely going to try it if it happens to you in the moment. Because when you drop a cup on the floor and it breaks, and your natural response is, before you pick up that glass, you will be aware of how you responded to it. So, and then from there, you can kind of question yourself and say, oh wow, I responded like this. And you'll go back to an event of like, oh yes, that person did that. And so that's just to be aware of these things. And it's like, you don't have to like think of that person. You don't have to hold a grudge against that person. It's science. It's natural. It's like, they didn't cause you to respond like that. Like, there's no blame. Like, you can't go back and say, oh, I was driving like this person because this person taught. No, that's not what awareness is about. An awareness is about changing. Awareness is about handling your issues because you became a little exhausted or a little drained in life. You were overwhelmed. And you knew there's a solution out there, and you're trying to find some type of way of bringing down that animosity in your life. Okay? So, personality disorder, personality issue, it's like, be aware of these things. Because we all do things based off of what worked for somebody else. Knowingly and non-knowingly. So it goes for anything, because there's so much to do out there in the world, and everybody taught us something, whether it's how to feed a dog or how to pet an animal at the zoo, if they allow that, how to make a puppy sit or pee on a pad. Like, we're gonna go back to what worked for someone else and give it a try. Now, another hidden odd way of personality issue would be sexual personality issues, to where the same thing happens. The reflection, the mirroring. But this is interesting, because with women, it's like they share their experience quite naturally. It's like, might as well stand up at a dinner table and tell all your friends out loud, and no problem telling a whole group of people, you know. And so with men it's a little different, but more women are giving advice to each other back and forth than the odds of a man giving advice to a man, like how to do things sexually, because typically the woman gives woman advice when it comes to that, you know. But the same thing occurs. It's like what works, right? It's like seduction. What works? Like how you gonna make your move? And then basically you're gonna ask your friend, like, hey, I like this girl, and what do you think I should do? Or like, how do you think I should approach the situation? Or how, whatever. Like, it's typical that a person's gonna ask advice, especially if they're not used to it. And so once again, it's like you're making a move, or you're gonna do something about introducing yourself to another person, but you're getting advice from someone, so you're doing it their way. And so these are those mirroring moments that create and they develop learned skills that cause personality issues. Now, as we continue to keep these things going on, and we allow this to keep happening and not be aware of these things, they become natural. It's just like driving a car, riding a bike, or anything natural like that, to where it's like, yeah, you gotta learn it a few times, but then once you get going, you get going. It's like those training wheels will come off, and basically you're going, and then you're riding that bike faster, and then next thing you know, like, you're jumping little curbs, or you're going all-terrain bicycling, hitting rocks, and you know, hitting your brake and making your back tire slide and all that stuff. Like, you get more experienced in it, right? And so, but we just keep going. Like, that's the same thing with these behaviors. Like, we ended up learning them from somewhere. We want to become aware of them at some point, so we can have our own touch to it, so we can have our own choice to it. To be able to make our own choices, that's to be able to be aware of these things, because they'll allow us to have different choices and options, to where we can actually make our own decision instead of allowing other people to make the decision for us. Because when you start developing these personality issues, like, why are you developing them for? Was it because you wanted to fit in the first place? Is it because you like the responses from your friends? Is it because it made you popular? Is it, you know, because you kind of got the attention, more of the attention than the other bit of people? What would it be? Because that's what kind of got you there in the first place. And so these are things that you just have to take a moment to be aware about, to be aware about the things that may have caused these things. And doing so, once you have this awareness, you'll be able to live life and make yourself aware of these things. But most of all, it'll give you the choice. Like, so next time you go to do something, you can literally ask yourself, like, do I want this or do I want that? You know, what do I like? Like, let me try this drink or let me try that drink. And then next thing you know, you'll be scheduling. Like, hey, I'm going to eat this dish for dinner. And then while you're almost done with this dish, or whatever, you know, halfway through your dish or meal, you'll be like, okay, this dish is pretty good. And you're naturally going to be like, hey, tomorrow I might prepare this dish because it looked good on that menu, whatever it is. And so you naturally, you know, allow yourself to schedule differently. instead of asking for advice all the time. So these are how you're able to be aware of your personality issues. And when life gets more involved and, more conscious, that's when a different awareness is going to arrive. And when this awareness arrives, it's like you'll start noticing the good and bad flaws and qualities of people, or the people that you're mirroring. And so, knowing this, it's going to be very effective because it becomes a part of a behavioral system that can actually cause more of an effect. Because when it's a conscious point of things, or a conscious understanding of the mind, it becomes more effective, because at this point you're dealing with not really taking much of that time to allow yourself to think and have proper awareness. Like, you're moving a little bit faster and you're utilizing things differently, to where it'll literally kind of start messing with your own productiveness of your life, like your creativity, the way you imagine things. Like, because the imagination is supposed to allow us to be able to choose something that we want to develop and build in our lives, whether it's a home, a family. It gives us an insight on how we want to allow ourselves to direct our lives, to be able to build a foundation to enjoy life in general, And so when these things get worse, it's like it's going to mess with all your production in life, the way you think, the way you listen to music, the way you write, the way you draw, the way you make your own decisions, from what you smell. Like you might be into a certain type of perfume, but when you let these things get worse, it's like you'll notice you're kind of changing these perfumes. And then when you start changing a lot of these things in your life, you're also going to be aware of the compliment rate. That means that you're not getting too much attention. So when you start getting a little bit low on that attention, you're going to start going out of your way to allowing yourself to change up in your life. And all this is going to happen naturally as it gets more and more effective. And I guess that's why they have that saying that when girls become roommates, like, it's really like a whole nother quarrel, because you're dealing with beauty products, you're dealing with beauty itself, and one is literally dependent on the other of their own natural beauty that they're dressing up and covering up itself. So it's like the way of being, right? Like, they're not going to comply. They're not going to be like having that same area of decorating, because they're going to be two completely different people. But they develop their friendship in a certain way of introduction. So, depending on age status, experience, who wanted more and more of the friend, it changes and varies, But at the end of the day, it's like, knowing this, like, hopefully it helps you to not be so upset. Because who would have known, right? Like, who would have known? We would have never known these things. So, but once they're known and once they're aware of it, it's like, oh wow, we can either take the opportunity to change or get upset. I would choose change.